Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another week. Welcome to our string manipulation lesson. This should be our last lesson on string manipulation, and I'll talk a bit more later on in the lesson about what we will be doing for the next couple of weeks. We're almost there now at the end of this, and then hopefully I'll get to see you all properly in September, which will be good. So last lesson we were talking about finding the length of a given string, case conversion, and checking the contents of a string. So some of the things we were looking at particular tasks. So thank you to everyone who sent me their tasks from last week. I'm just going to go through what that task was. So the first question, so it said, write a program which asks for a username. This program will return the username in lowercase, return the username in uppercase, return the username with the first letter as uppercase and the rest lower, check the length of the username and tell the user whether they've entered 6 characters or not, and check that the first 4 characters are alpha and the 5th and 6th are digits, and then tells the user. So I got some good submissions from this. Most of you managed to figure this out. So let's go through it. So the first thing it says is ask for a username. So that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to say user equals input, or you could say username equals input, and then brackets. Type in something like, please enter a username. Okay, close speech marks, close brackets. Okay, that's fairly obvious. We're asking the user for an input. Then we return that username in uppercase. And when it says return, that means print out in this case anyway. So we're going to use print, and then we're going to have user.upper, open close brackets, and close your bracket for the print statement. So some people got is upper and just upper mixed up. They're two different things. Is upper will return either true or false, depending on whether the username is in uppercase or not. And just upper will return that username, in uppercase. So let me change this to lower instead of upper, because that's what the next one should have been. So print user.upper this time, because we've just done lower. We want it in upper the second time round. Same thing with lowercase, is lower, is upper. Is, if it's got the word is in front of it, it will be returning a true or false. If it's got the word, if it doesn't have that is in front of it, then it will be returning a string, at least in these particular things. Return the username with the first letter as uppercase and the rest lower. Now, there were a couple of different ways I saw this being done. One of the ways was by going, okay, user 0 is the first one, and so dot upper, and then concatenate with this plus sign. Don't forget to use print with that. Let's add the print in. User 0.upper plus user 1 onwards dot lower. Okay, so some people did it that way, which is perfectly reasonable, and that actually shows me that you know how to use the string slicing, and that you can use concatenation as well, and going into upper and lower. But another way you could have done it, which would have been much easier, would be print user.title, which was, or even not title, because if it's got a space in it, then it will have any other letters. Any letters after a space would have be capitalized. So you can use capitalize instead. So both of these lines here, 4 and 5, do the exact same thing, right? But this just means that you don't have to type as much, right? This does the same thing. It does show me that you can do more, but if you want to make your life a little bit easier, you can use this word capitalize instead. Okay. Then check the length of the username and tell the user whether they've entered 6 characters or not. So this is where you need to use your if statement, okay? So if some people kind of went, okay, len of user, right? And they put that into a variable. So length equals len. Oops, I always spell that wrong when I'm typing it. Length equals len of user, right? Some of you did that and then you checked if length is less than 6, blah, blah, blah. You don't need to put that into a variable. You can just say if len brackets user is less than 6 or whatever, because this does the exact same thing. You might as well just, you're not really adding a lot by adding that extra line, unless you're going to keep using that variable over and over again. That's when I would want to make it a variable rather than checking it once. Okay, so if len of user is, what's it say actually, because it's whether they've entered 6 characters or not. If it is less than or equal to 6, otherwise you could do less than 7. That's the exact same thing as less than or equal to 6. Don't forget your colon for then. And as we've mentioned before, we've got this indentation that appears automatically when Python expects an indentation to be there, which is fantastic. If that length is less than or equal to 6, then it will say print you have less, well, hang on. Oh no, we do want it less than 6, don't we? You have less than 6 characters. Okay. And then else print you have 6 or more characters. Oops. Okay, so that's how to do that one. And then this last one, check that the first 4 characters are alpha and the 5th and 6th are digits, and then tells the user. What I would do is actually put this inside this if statement, and I'll tell you why. Because we're checking the first 4 characters are alpha and the 5th and 6th are digits. If there are, in fact, not inside the first one, but inside this one, inside the else statement, if there are less than 6 characters, then we can't check whether the 5th and 6th are digits because they don't exist. So if you put an if statement and then a second if statement that's completely separate from this statement, then you're going to have issues. You're going to come up with an error if it has less than 6 characters. So I'll show you what it looks like both ways so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So checks that the first 4 characters are alpha. So a couple of things that people did. They did two different ways of doing this again. So if and again, some people kind of went alpha equals user up to 4. So 0, 1, 2, and 3. That's the first 4 characters. Dot is alpha. Oops, not / dot is alpha. Open close brackets. Have I spelled that right? A-L, no, alpha. There we go. Some people did it like that. Again, if you're only using this once, you don't need to assign it to a variable. So you can just say if user is alpha, right? And the other thing that some people did was saying, if that is equal to true. You don't need to say that because, and I'll show you why, because this will return either true or false, and it will basically be saying if true or if false. So if it's false, it won't go into the if statement. So all I need is if user up to 4 dot is alpha, right? Then you can say print the first 4 digits are alpha, right? And then else print the first 4 digits need to be alpha, or something like that, right? Okay. And then most of you also did a second if statement to check that the 5th and 6th are digits. So same idea, if user, and then we're going from 5th and 6th. So don't forget 4 up to 5. Oh, up to 6, sorry. 4 up to 6, yeah. Dot is digits. Oops. Then print the 5th and 6th digits are digits. Characters, I should have said on this anyway. But anyway, and then else print the 5th and 6th chars need to be digits. Okay. So that's one way of doing it. Now, if you'd have done that, that would have been absolutely fine. That's one way of doing it. A couple of you tried to do a different way of doing it, and this was completely good way of trying, but there's just a couple of things that I hadn't really explicitly taught you to allow you to do it properly. So all of this you don't necessarily need. What you can do is, because you're checking them both, you could try and check them both at the same time. So by going, okay, I want this bit here, I'm going to copy that, and then in here I'm going to say, some people put a plus here, and then user 4 to 6 is digit. So what they're trying to check is if this one's an alphabetical and this one's a digit, right? Unfortunately, this plus sign, what does that actually mean? Well, that means concatenation, doesn't it? We don't want to use a plus sign for an if statement. Instead, we can just type in the word and you can see it's come up in a different color to show that it's a special, it's a keyword in Python. And then if we do it that way, we can just get rid of this bit here, and we can just change this to say, and the 5th and 6th are digits, right? And then the first 4 digits, first 4 chars, I'm changing that, and then chars need to be, chars need to be alpha, and the 5th and 6th need to be digits. Okay. Okay. So let me zoom out a little bit so you can see more of this at once. But you can see that that reduces the amount of code that we have to do. Now, I said I was going to run this with both types, so I'm just going to run it first as it is so that you can see how this works. Let me save it as well. This is the username check, right? Please enter a username, Mrs. Muck 56, right? You have 6 or more characters. The first 4 chars need to be alpha, and the 5th and 6th need to be digits. So, and it has returned as well the Mrs. Muck 56 all in lowercase, all in uppercase, title case, and then title case again because we did it twice, not even title case, capital case. And then you have 6 or more characters. The first 4 chars need to be alpha and the fifth. Okay, let's try again. Enter a username, mymook56. First 4 chars are alpha and the 5th and 6th are digits. Okay, and then I'm going to go one more time where I'm going to just put hi, and it says you have less than 6 characters. Now, you can see that it doesn't actually go into this bit here because this is still inside this level of indentation here. If I select all of this and go into edit, there should be a dedent. No, okay. I think you can do Shift Tab. Yeah, Shift Tab allows you to dedent things if you've indented them by accident or something like that. But if I run that now and I enter a username that's too small, it'll come up with the first 4 chars need to be alpha and the 5th and 6th need to be digits, which is interesting. I expected that to have come up with an error because we'd have gone user 4 to 6. Let's just run that through just to see what happens, because like I say, I was expecting that to come out. Oops, I ran it. Ran it again by accident. Oops. Hi, and then going through. I'm just going to quickly go through these. If the length of user is 2, if 2 is less than 6, which is true, it says you have less than 6 characters, which it does, and then right, this is where we get into the interesting bit. User up to 4. Hi up to 4. Still high. Is that alpha? Yes. User 4 to 6. Hi 4 to 6 doesn't exist. So that's actually comes up with nothing. Nothing dot is digit is false, right? There's no digits in nothing. So that's why that came out like that. So and there you can see as well that if false goes straight to the else section. So that's why we don't need to put in if it is equal to true and if it is equal to true. You don't need to put that twice. Okay, so that's enough about last week's work, because a lot of you managed to do that quite well. Before we go on to this week's information, I just want to go over what's going to happen over the next few weeks. Next week onwards, I won't be doing live streams, partly because next Friday I'm going to be in school, so I won't be able to do a live stream, but also because I want you to get caught up on all the Seneca sections you haven't done. So as usual, you'll need to get all of these done to 100%. So I'm just going to go through what each week is going to look like from next week onwards, okay? Now this one, which is due Friday the 10th, is already been set up, ready for you to do. Obviously, you're going to have to do this week's task first. This is 13 sections with some programming, some theory in there. 13 sections, if you take it, according to Seneca, it should take 39 to 65 minutes, depending on how long you take for each section. Now, knowing how well you've done in the past, how quickly you've done on most of these kind of things before, that will take you way less than that. So 39 minutes is if you spend 3 minutes per section, and I know that a lot of you spend like half of that generally to get to 100%. So if you're spending even 5 minutes per section, it'll only take you 65 minutes, which is just over a lesson's worth of stuff. So I hope that there'll be some that are easier and some that are harder, so that you don't go over that 60 minutes of a lesson. So that's due next Friday. This one's due Friday the 17th. This is 14 sections, which are mostly theory, but with some ethical issues in there as well. which are obviously a theory topic, but we didn't really go over the ethical stuff on Seneca before, so going through those can be quite interesting. So I thought that would be useful for you. So that's due on the last day of term. And then over the summer, I want you to have a go at all the different tests and exam style questions that they have on there. For some of these tests, we haven't done them in a while. We haven't done that topic in a while. So you might want to review some of those concepts. You might want to go back and do them. You have the whole summer to do these. So, you know, we still got those to go through. And there are 15 sections to go through there. That's just a review of what I want you to be doing over the next few weeks. Once you've completed all of those, you should have completed all the sections on computer science, AQA GCSE, and all the sections on coding Introduction to Python v3. You want to check over these over the summer holidays to make sure you've done them all. I know some of you hadn't quite finished some of them. This is assuming that you've kept up with all the homework. So just go back over them, check over them. I think there might be one section in the coding one that we hadn't quite gotten to, so make sure you've done that one as well. But generally, you should have finished all of those. Okay, I'm 20 minutes into the lesson and I haven't even taught you anything new. So let's start. Let's rectify that. So this lesson, we're going to talk about finding data in strings and iterating through strings. Okay, and some of that should ring a bell. That iteration. Think about what that means. Remember what that means. So firstly, finding data in strings. It can be very similar to English to check if a value occurs within a string. So it will return true or false if you ask Python if a string contains a value. So you can say name is Elizabeth, letter is F, print is the letter E in name. You're not having to say is. I mean, you could say if E in name, right? That would print out true or false. And print letter in name. So letter is the letter F, lowercase f. There is no letter F in the name Elizabeth, so that will give you false. That word in is another Python keyword. So again, you can say if E in name, or if letter in name, or whatever it is you want to say. Okay, and again, it will give you your true or false values. Okay, that's fairly straightforward. I hope you kind of understood that. Iterating, we remember the word iteration means to repeat. So remember that iterating or repeating instructions can be more efficient than writing the same thing over and over again. We're creating a loop where certain instructions are executed and the program returns back to the beginning of the loop. We've done this plenty of times before. You should understand what iteration is. If you want to perform an action on each letter of a string, you can use a for loop. These can be used when you know how many iterations you need to do at the beginning of the loop, or when you don't know how many iterations you need to do at the beginning of the loop, because sometimes you might go, oh, well, I don't know how many letters there are in this. So you can kind of go, well, for letter in word or whatever. Okay, so like this is an example here. So the name is Elizabeth, and for letter in name, you're going to print out letter.upper times 5. Now what's that times 5 mean? That just means do it 5 times. So letter.upper means that it's going to be in uppercase and it will be doing it 5 times. So what it's doing is going, okay, what's the first letter in the name? It's E. Okay, it's going to print out E. Then what's the second letter in the name? It's L, and so on, and until you get to the end. So obviously I haven't printed out all of them here, but you get the idea of how this would work. E-L-I-Z-E, A-B-E-T-H. It will go all the way through and continue until the very end. Okay, so for letter in name, that just goes for each of the letters in the name. This is very similar, again, to how it worked with the lists. So for name in list is how we did it before, for example. That's one of the things that we have talked about. Okay, so this, I've got a question for you. I don't know why that hasn't popped up, but if the password is QWERTY and new string is nothing, it says for letter in password, if letter dot is lower is equal to true. Again, we don't necessarily need this is equal to true, because if statements will return either true or false, and you don't need this is equal to true, but you can have it there if that helps you remember what it's checking. Then it says new string plus equals letter. Now, plus equals just goes itself plus whatever is here. So plus is a bit like saying new string equals new string plus letter, and it's concatenating those items together. And you can do that same thing with numbers as well. If you said num1 equals num1 plus 5, or num1 plus equals 5, that would do the exact same thing. So this appends a letter to a new string, and it's going to print out new string. And what it's doing is going to print out QERY. So I'm going to send you a Google form just to tell me, what do you think this program does? Describe what the program does and why does it output QERY. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of minutes on that. I don't know why my timer's not showing up, but I'll just give you a couple of minutes. Good, so I've got some really good answers here. If you haven't put your answer yet, then please make sure you get yours in there. But so far I've got things like, so what it's doing is it's going through each letter in the password and it's adding onto the new string the letters, only the letters that are lowercase. So most of you have worked that out. So if it's an uppercase letter, it won't ever go in. It won't go into this if statement, and so it won't add that letter to the new string. So it only adds in Q, E, R, and Y. It doesn't add in the capital W or the capital T because it's gone, well, the letter isn't lower, it's upper. So it won't go into this if statement and it won't append that item. Okay, so if you haven't submitted that, please make sure you do, or I can't say that you've attended this lesson. But I also would like from you for you to write a program which asks for a string of data. This is, I put this up on this week's live stream information as well, because I thought having it somewhere else would be useful so you didn't have to have the YouTube task up all the time. It will code the data by substituting some of the characters. So here's an example at the bottom anyway. So password 1234 could become password 2468 with $signs and a capital P. So here are some ideas that you could use. Now, bear in mind as well that these aren't all you have to do. These are just some ideas. So you might decide that, oh, I don't want to replace my S's with a $sign. I want to replace my L's with a 7 or something like that. I don't know. However you feel that would work. Okay. And so here are some ideas of how you might do this. Now, don't forget, you can use this idea of going through each letter in your password and checking to see if letter, and then you can say equals, and then S. That would give you your S sign. And you can even say or letter dot, not dot, equals, lowercase s in speech marks. Make sure that if you've got your or in there, so you've got and, or, and not, which you can use in the same way that I used that and statement earlier with this task here and here. Okay, so you could always put or in there as well. Yeah. Replace all occurrences of S, capital S or lowercase s with a $sign. That's one way of doing it. You could replace vowels with the next one. So if it's A, then you'll make it E instead. E can be replaced by I, etc., etc. Making the first character uppercase. Yeah, so what you'll need to do is use this kind of idea, and you'll probably want a new string in there where you have where you start from nothing. You start from the original password and then you go, oh, actually, I'm going to add this in. One of the things you might want to consider, though, is if you're changing something into a number, then you don't want to then check to see if it's a number as well, if that makes any sense. So, yeah, that's your task for this week. Don't forget, this is our last live stream lesson, and hopefully the next lesson that you'll be hearing me in will be one in person in September, and I'll be able to speak to you personally then. This lesson we talked about finding data in strings and iterating through strings. Hopefully you feel you've understood that. If you have any questions about today's lesson, then please post on Satchel1 on Share My Homework, and I will endeavour to help you out with that. I'll still be online for the next few hours. I won't be doing a Year 10 lesson today, so I'll be even more free than I usually would be. So please make sure you do both of those tasks, the one that I sent earlier, I've got most of you have responded to that now, so that's good. Which the link is in the chat, and make sure you've completed this this task as well. Okay, have a lovely week. I will hopefully see you in September, but I hope to see all of your submissions for these tasks and for the Seneca tasks next week and the week after and over summer. See you later. Bye.